Okay. Go ahead and call this Vernon Township Fire Territory Board meeting to order. Roll call. Tanya Davis.
Here.
Lori May.
Here.
Greg Brewer. And Chief Elder. Here. Okay. I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to use Mark's flag there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first order of business, previous meeting minutes. Do we have any that we need to approve? You have the November 24th, 2025 meeting minutes. Only Flory and I may vote on these. And since I'm the chair, I cannot make the motion.
So moved.
There's a first, now second. All those in favor approving the board meeting minutes from November 24th, 2025, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's 2-0.
Remember, you'll have to do roll call since we haven't voted yet.
Oh. You know what?
Let's do roll call
He
vote.
did.
Well, I'm sorry, roll call vote.
Oh, roll
Each
call.
vote, time we vote. Okay, roll call. Flory May.
Here.
No.
Aye.
Yay or nay?
Oh, yay. Sorry, I couldn't hear what we were
That's
voting on.
2-0. All right, next minutes to approve and the only two people who can vote on this are Flory May and Tanya Davis since I was absent. This is our March 23rd, 2026 board meeting minutes. Are there any corrections, errors, or changes? If not, I'll entertain a motion and a second, and then we'll do a roll call vote.
Make the motion to approve
First.
the meeting.
There's been a first by Tanya, second by Flory.
Second. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye by roll call.
Aye.
Tanya.
Aye.
Flory May.
Aye.
Okay, that's 2-0. All right. Okay. The next item is in the announcements. We have the announcements. All right. Troy, you're up.
Hey,
Financial forecast.
yes, well, thank you. No, I'm going to start on page 12. So, or your hard copies, page 12. No, it'd be page 14.
Just a second.
Page 14 for your PDF file there.
Thank you.
So, just kind of a opening comments about the legislative session. It wasn't as bad as the prior year. There was some positive in this session that will be helpful to us going into 27. There was still a lot of conversation around local option income tax, which they really kind of kicked the can down the road. Last year, if you recall, during the session, and part of Senate Bill 1 was a significant restructuring of how local option income tax was going to work starting in 2028. And the units would have all had to adopt prior to October 1, 27. That's all been pushed out a year. And so you may hear some conversation about a new provision that it's not required, but there's a new provision that they formed what's called MUST, and it's an acronym. I don't know exactly what MUST is, but what it really represents are the financial folks from each town and the county it's not a must that they must meet, but it is a group that's supposed to get together and trying to determine what rates they would want to implement. Now, I really don't know how that's going to work because the cities and towns don't even know how much in their respective areas they even have as a tax base to determine a rate. And so they have to have that work done by October 1st. But it would have made more sense. It was a year from now in 27, but this is a 26 determination. So I don't know quite how groups will get through that. And it's not required, and it's doesn't have any weight to it other than, that's the goal, I think, is for the counties and the cities and towns to start talking about the rates, what they want to adopt. However, I would say that we're probably still going to hear more conversation about local option income tax in the next session yet. So they just weren't ready. I fully anticipated, to be honest, that they were going to move that out a year. That was not a surprise to me. So there has been conversation about how much the county should have ability to raise and how much the cities and towns should have the ability to raise. The county and the cities and towns pretty much have the same rate to adopt. And there's the question, will the cities and towns tend to represent more of the lit rate than the county? Anyway, lots of conversation around local option income tax. One thing that did happen that was a positive, and I would have bet money that this wouldn't have happened, but it did. For the last 3 years, they have put an artificial cap on the amount of property tax units could collect. Oh, no, if you would go to page 12, I'm sorry. So you've all heard me use this mouthful before. This is the 6-year non-farm personal income factor, and it just became important again. For many years, we relied on this average to determine how much property tax in the ensuing year we would receive. But for the last 3 years, we went through this calculation, and no matter what the calculation was, the state just said no more than 4%. They were trying to limit property taxes. But at the end of the session, Representative Thompson introduced the cap again and at 4%, but it did not get heard. And so because it didn't get heard, we go back to the language that happened 3 years ago, which is the 6-year non-farm personal income factor. And so the good news about that is, had it been in place for this year, it would have been 6%. But if you go right next to it, you see that 1.59%. That's my estimate right now. It cannot be more than 6%, but I'm forecasting it's going to be really close to 6% for 2027. So for the last 3 years, though, that factor, that 4%, hasn't mattered so much to us because we've been appealing the growth factor and we've been going beyond that 4%. Well, that growth factor, as you recall, last year in the session was growth factor appeal was taken out and no longer an option. So I would have expected a 4% increase. I actually didn't have it in your fiscal plan because the way the law read, we were going to go back to the 6-year non-farm personal income factor. So it worked out, but I'm surprised they didn't cap it again. But 6% is better than 4. It's not 12 or something like we've been getting, but it's better than now that's not unique to you. This is cities, towns, counties, townships, libraries, school operation funds. And so that's a real positive. I can't believe they let that go through, but they did. That will have an impact on tax rates. We're going to see this shift in assessed valuation going forward, as we get these new supplemental deductions kicking on between now and 2031, we're going to see our tax base erode. But I think, to be honest, that there's some expectation that these tax rates are all going to rise and people are going to get back to the caps. And then tax rates at some point may not even matter anymore. It'll be just the caps. But for some, that's not true. But for a lot of them, it is. And I'm still not convinced we're going to get all the way to 2031 with this. I call it kind of wading into the water. And I think you're going to hear some units squealing about the impact of this in advance of 2031. And that gives them time to turn it off, right? Okay, I think we've hit the pinch point. And so, but right now, the law is, and there are a lot of schools. I don't know about Mount Vernon right now, but I know there's a lot of schools rerunning referendums because what they passed just 2 years ago, it's not going to be the same revenue because they modeled what they would have otherwise expected. And so I'm working with a couple of schools right now that are rerunning referendums. It's quite the scramble. So, but it's going to be probably the largest year for referendums across the state for schools because they've got to pass it. They no longer can do it every year like they used to be able to do it. They have to do it in a general election. So it's either 2020 2026 or 2028. So you'll probably hear a lot about school referendums. But as I said, not all awful. And I have some good news on local option income tax at the local level. What I've seen is the actual collections now. So I'm gonna go through all that with you. But again, this isn't awful news. No, if you'd go one page farther, I'm gonna go to page 13. This is where you can kind of see that 4% cap that's been in place. I've highlighted on that page. And excuse me, I'm sorry, go to page 14. I want to talk about the fire fund, not the township. But you can see that 4% cap in the fire. Now, I think you're all aware of this, but we were very fortunate last year to get our appeal. That was just not, it was a rough year the year before. It was even rougher this last year, and sometimes just hit and miss of how they were approved. But you were fortunate to get it. But one thing that the DLGF had done, which they had never done, is they made an adjustment coming into 27, a negative adjustment. And their orders were reading like, okay, you see this number, $852,000, you were approved for the appeal. However, because we know you're going to get local option income tax off of that increased levy, we're going to reduce your maximum levy in 2027. Not the full amount, but in your case, 301,145. So of the 852 that we got for this year isn't permanent. It is true what they're saying, that we will get more lit. But guess what happens when they lower our levy in 27? Our lit portion goes down then in 28 because of that negative adjustment. So I think they were thinking at the time, like, well, we'll be in the new lit model and it won't matter. It won't be based on property tax anymore. Well, now it does matter because they kick the can down the road. So I yet to have a conversation. There's been some turnover at the DLGF. They're scrambling right now. And with legislation, there's a lot of pressure on them about legislation. And they've had turnover. And so they're in a bit of a scramble. But I do not agree with their logic in that. You should get more lit because of that, because you are a growing area of the county and you should be getting a bigger portion of the lit. And so that we're counter to some of our goal, but nevertheless, but that's going to play into what you're going to see for the budget this year. So the budget's going to look different for 27 than 26, where we had in prior years been increasing our budgets somewhat artificially to tie up the cash. Well, with no growth appeal in sight, we won't have to do that. And so what we now have that you're going to see today is a budget put together by Mark and staff to a more realistic budget. There's not necessarily as much padding in this, where we put $1 million in the budget in the past to kind of, give us some cushion. This budget is going to be tighter. We're not going to have that flexibility. Not that you can't do an additional appropriation, because you can if things got too tight, but we don't have the $1 million plugged in this year. And that was one of my last minute changes. I apologize. This morning I got up, I was writing my notes for my meeting today, and I realized I didn't reduce the unused appropriation. So you have a separate page 4 to replace in your document. I'll show you that in a minute. But this is important because that 300,000 is working against the revenue on the fire department, not just in 2027, but also in going into 2028 because of the lit allocation. Page 39. I don't normally go here, but I want to note this because I think this is probably the most visible place now. You can see the budget down there at the bottom left. You can see that the budget that you had passed last year was about $7.8 million. If you recall, that was the higher budget with the $1 million included in it. The budget that we're proposing for 27 is $7,319,000. Now, obviously, that's inconsistent with what we've been seeing budget increases, but no longer is the fluff in there, and so that looks probably odd, like our budget's going down, but it's the mechanics of where we are now. with the appeal. I think you'll see in a moment that it looks cleaner in the sense you'll really know where you stand versus we've always had to put the budget in and project it coming out. We're not doing that any longer. So with that said, let's go to the new page 4. That was a single sheet that Stacy had handed out, and look at the fire fund, what all this means. So I'm actually going to stand up here, point a little bit. So just kind of starting with let's kind of look at 25 where we were. So oops.
Yeah, let me touch the screen.
Oh, did I do that? Oh, I won't get as close then.
Yeah, it's
There we go.
fancy.
Yeah, that is fancy. So I'm gonna start with 25. When you look at 25, with the money that came in from the township at 604,000, the budget was out of balance 313, but the township contributed 604,000 of lit. So we actually had a cash balance that went up in 25, but we encumbered 1,747,000, and that was the equipment for the Quint and a few other minor things.
Yeah.
So the good news is, the Quint is 100% paid for. That's pretty impressive to pay for a piece of equipment like that out of cash. And so coming into this year, of course, we have the new the new homestead credit. That was part of Senate Bill 1 last year. That was new. Governor Braun was pushing hard on reducing property taxes, and that was the piece that really took it over the finish line. That was new, a new thought that came up, and basically, it's maximum $300 or 10% of your net tax bill. So it actually takes homes below the 1% cap. So just again, I think I used this example with you before, but a $300,000 house, the maximum credit on that is $300, but the maximum circuit breaker amount is $3,000. So they calculate the $3,000, but then they take another $300 off. So it's net after they calculate it. Now I will tell you, I don't know if you've gotten your tax bills in Hancock County or not. I know I've talked to some folks in Hamilton County, and mine went up, some went down, some places raised tax rate increases. Reporters like, well, what's the average? Well, you can't really come up with an average because it's unique to everyone's home. If your assessment went up, it's likely you didn't see a decrease with that $300 credit. And so it's a hit and miss of how that plays out. So it definitely offsets some of the increase, but it is a loss to the units right now. And so the original thought too on this credit was the city and towns can make up for that by adopting a lit if they want, and they could raise it. Well, not now because they just moved it out to 29. So the loss started in 26, 27, 28. So we're going to be dealing with that loss now. Maybe in 4 years they will want to make that up, but right now that's how that's going to play out. And another change that they made that wasn't so great is they protected the debt funds from it. Circuit breaker has never been taken in the debt funds, but the homestead credit was silent on that last year, and which meant that we could spread the loss among all the funds, including the debt funds. They said, no, that's not our intent. And so all the loss of the new credit is going to the funds that are really within your maximum levies. Your equipment fund, your fire fund, your township fund, poorly will all take a bigger loss because it's no longer loss of the debt funds. So coming into 26, I've made some modifications to the revenue. If you compared it, I've updated things. This 105,000 I built in here, that was a reimbursement for the building, Stacy, right? For the
Yes.
105,000.
Yes, that would what we got from mediation.
Yeah. So Mark has also provided me an updated EMS forecast that was recent, and that was positive. Those were upward adjustments. So our EMS revenue now, net Mark. So obviously on a good pattern upward. So we're going to know these circuit breaker amounts, these losses here shortly. It's not quite out. That's one of the things that DLGS is working on. But working our way down, this was the budget that was passed. Now I'm only showing unused appropriation of $500,000 this year. And Stacy, you may have to help me on this. You're spending some of it on the training.
We'd like to, propose to spend some of that on the training facility
So
this year.
This
It wasn't necessarily discussed in the initial budget that we presented last April or whatever it was, right? But we'd like to potentially move that project forward. And I think it's still a little bit questionable about whether or not it's going to be a 26 project based on, we've not been moving through it as quickly as I'd hoped this year.
Okay, if you do that, what I would suggest is if you can get it at least under contract
Yep.
before December 31st, so you can encumber the funds. Otherwise, you may have to do an additional appropriation next year. Or if you know it's just not going to happen, we could make an upward adjustment to the budget in 27 now, if you so choose to get it in advertised next year.
Okay.
So I've assumed you're going to approve that, but if you don't approve it, then the cash goes up. This assumes that you will do that. Of course, the township increased their contribution by the amount of their increase. And so all things considered right now, we would end the year with 3.5 million. I think that's a conservative number at this point. So you've heard me say in the past, well, what's the right operating balance that you should keep? I've always looked at the ensuing year property taxes being 50%. That's what I would call a conservative, meaning high number. You could probably go below that. I know the units that do go below that. It's just always been my recommendation because excise tax, darn it, touched it again. If I touch away, will it go away? Okay. Okay. So anyway, so if that were the case, 27, $3.2 million. If you had $3.2 million of cash at the end of this year, that would be more than sufficient going into the ensuing year. Now, this is one of our first that we are presenting a budget that's not in balance. So part of it is due to this higher loss that we're going to experience in the credit. And a big part of it is the $300,000 downward adjustment they're making on our maximum levy. So we're not working with the same revenue. So when you look at revenue, 6,449,000, we're actually going down overall. And so obviously in a growth community like this, that's a hit. So I've assumed the township's not voted on this yet, but I've assumed the township will increase their contribution. Well, I got to talk about that. I'm back to that in a minute. Increase their contribution to the fire fund based on what their portion has gone up. That's what has been the practice. But if you look at these two numbers, then they're out of bounds. So but we still end the year with 3,166,000. So, we're a little below that 50% threshold there, but not crazy off. And that's assuming Mark spends 100% of the budget. That was the change on your page 4. I'd forgotten to take this $1 million out, and that wasn't realistic because Mark's gonna be spending a tighter budget this year.
I'm gonna bring this up.
Okay.
Looking at this, I see a really concerning trend on my end going from 2027 on forward. And that is our expenses we're on deficit, our expenditures are going up, our revenues are not really keeping pace, our bank balance is dramatically dropping. I can handle a $300,000 difference in the bank, but now you go from 2026 at 3.5 down to 2.3 by 2029. You're looking at a 1.2 million hit. Do we see any markers where this trend's going to reverse back, where we're not running deficit?
Well, yes. By the way, that's what this model is intended to do, is show you these trends.
Right.
This is hopefully this is not how we play this out. That if things don't change, the fire department may have to start making adjustments in their 28 budget,
Right.
so to get that deficit correct.
I mean, you have one of two things you can do in these kind of situations. Well, three actually. One is you can tax more, right? And try to get more the local income tax. Cut your expenditures, right, to back, or raise your fees,
Right.
right, to generate more revenue. So looking at this, you go back and look where we were in 2021. Excuse me, 2023, we're in a $50,000 deficit. That's not, and we came back and we were in a positive, but our trend now is growing rapidly on the expenditure side.
Yeah, the big game changers, the two big game changers for us in Senate Bill 1 last year, the loss of the growth appeal and the homestead credit. Where we were usually getting $1 million increase on our levy adjustment, that we lost that, and the $400,000 homestead credit loss in this fund too.
And my concern is this: we're a fire territory board. We don't have taxing authorities, so it's not like we can go out and, hey, we're we're running low on their bank account. We're running deficits. We need to generate more. We don't have that authority. The board relies on the towns. Going into 2029 now for local income tax. So, and then even if we do establish local income tax by then, we're still 6 months out from even seeing that. Would have to be implemented by 2029, right?
It'd have to be adopted by 28.
Okay, so 28 effective 29. Yes. You're not really seeing any of that income, because income tax is collected differently than property tax. So really, you're not seeing those revenues until 2030.
Well, good question. That is a good question, because that's what they're struggling with, is how does the conversion work? Right now we work in behind in how the flow works. But they're supposed to be going to more of a real-time model, in that what you adopt in October, the rates change for the payers January 1.
Right.
And they're supposed to be starting to distribute revenue based on that new rate
of W-2 collections, because you're still got a lot of other non-collectible taxes.
That's the $1 million question,
right?
Greg, because
you're not seeing my money until October as a self-employed.
So is the county or is the state going to estimate the amount,
right,
or what's going to be collected,
and forward it to the municipalities, and then just collect in arrears? Is that what they're trying to think?
Well, that is a very good question, and I don't have an answer to that yet.
Right.
So they're supposed to be going to a real-time model. Like, you adopt in October, you're going to start collecting the revenue in January. I don't know. I don't have. I agree with you.
I mean,
I have questions about all that too.
Because if I think we'll be fine, because should be in at least a $2.2 million cash balance.
Yeah.
But if you are a municipality or a district that does not have excess money, and you're running pretty low, and you're relying on that model, and your forecasts are off by a couple, tens of thousands of dollars, that could cause some issues.
Let me give you a positive on this. Let's go to page 33. This is a page I forgot to talk about. And it's an important page. Excuse me. Because this came in really good news. So just recently, this is fresh news. I received the 2024 collection data. You think, well, what, 2024? That's so old. Why are you saying that? Well, if you think about it, we're always working behind. Certifying the collection amount on a calendar year. We all just filed our tax returns April 15th, and then you file for extensions. They really don't know how much they really collected in a calendar year.
Right.
That's the important number. I mean, the budget number, to be honest, doesn't even matter to me almost, because you always end up reconciling to this calendar year number. The good news is for Hancock County, this is a very strong number. Hancock County saw their collections go up 14.5%. And that is big. That is really big. And so what it's done is when it looks at, all right, well, we collected $74 million, but we only had a distribution that year of $59 million. And so guess what? Our special distribution is going to jump. If you look here, this year's was 11,480,000. Next, when I say next year, I mean 2026, that we should get this money in June. A special distribution, almost $15.7 million. Now, going back to your concern, the county has a 15% reserve here. I want to touch it again. Has a 15% reserve at the state. That's a large amount of money. How will they use that in that, that transition?
Get blood out of a turnip, getting money out of the county.
Now, their original language last year said we're going to burn that balance down. They had it in there, but Greg, I hear you. I don't have the answers yet.
No, I'm just looking at it. If I was a business owner, my big concern is if my revenues are not increasing and my expenses are going up, how long can I sustain that before it becomes an issue? And the only reason I bring it up is, I don't know, election cycles have big impacts, right? I don't know if Tanya runs. I don't know if I run. So this board changes. Somebody comes in here and goes, oh my gosh, these guys have been running, $1 million deficits for last, and we're in a huge pickle. And then you still get back to here. And this is the thing I told Jeter and I told Lawson. You put the onus on us as local leaders to make up your revenue problem. And what I mean by that is I now have to, it won't affect me if I run, but I got two people who run in 2028 for re-election, maybe. And do they really want to put their necks out and say, I'm raising your local income tax?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. People don't understand. Well, why are you doing a local income tax? Well, we had to lower your property taxes. Now services and so forth are being underfunded. So now we have to raise a separate tax to pay for these things. Well, that's not, in their mind, that's ridiculous. They don't understand the budget. They're not sitting in here going through and seeing our revenue issues.
There's no question the political pressure was pushed out on the local.
So my point is, Chief and Stacy, when they're doing this, they can't rely on the fact that McCordsville or Fortville is going to institute a local income tax by 2029.
Yeah. Well,
right.
Keep in mind, the county actually is the one voting on the fire portion.
Right. But I mean, at the end of the day, if we don't have a local income tax, the county is not going to give us that money, is my understanding. We have to have that for them to funnel our portion to us.
Well, and they even changed the makeup of how that gets distributed, and they defined it a little better, how that gets distributed. And so I would just say that, there's going to be a lot of pressure from fire departments and cities and towns on the county to adopt the appropriate rate to make them whole. And so in your case, we've been trying to climb out of the hole, right? I mean, we've been trying to catch up to Sugar Creek. And so you actually might be a beneficiary because you're so far behind in comparison. Sugar Creek might be worried. They might have a different concern because they're so much higher than us right now. So I hear your concern though. So what I would say to that is Mark knows this, that we've got a $300,000 problem. What can you do in 27 to hold expenses without making major cuts? How much can you, even though you got the budget, try to spend your revenue? That's why I've always told everybody, spend your revenue. No matter what the budget is, you should try to spend your revenue. And so then that's to your point. I mean, that's the purpose of these models, is to identify these problems. And, for a while we've been on a nice ride, always with the big asterisks of the appeal, but it looks different now. So.
Right. And I just want to make sure we're all can see that. I see the trend. I want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on that trend, because, once it starts getting too high, I mean, you get into a situation where you have 2.2 or $2.3 million of expenditures. Where does he cut? Right. You get to a point where then it really gets down to, well, you can't have we can't have raises anymore. You're cut back on raises. What happens there is we can't hire new people. So then you put pressure on your existing staff.
And it just is, it snowballs, and I've seen it happen. So I'm very cognizant of the fact I don't want to get those so high that we can't we can't ever cut enough to get that trend back to a positive. And we dip so much into cash balance that, I'm a big believer with Tim at the town level. We want to keep in our rainy day fund 6 months worth of operating and payroll, because who knows what happens at the state level. DLGF loses 90% of their staff or something. You never know if you get a state shutdown or they're going into a longer session or whatever, and all of a sudden we're not getting our disbursement. We know it's coming, but I still got to pay people.
Yeah, no, it happened years ago when assessments were late.
Yeah.
And people had to go out and do temporary loans and
we don't want to be in that position. Yeah. So we're keeping a strong cash balance. And that's kind of where I see for the fire department, where I like a good strong cash balance, is can we get through 6 months and pay our bills and pay our employees and be okay.
Yeah.
And eventually,
page 4.
I don't know what our payroll, what's 6 months worth?
Well, we could look at that. Personal services budgets, 6 million.
About half of them.
It's about 3 million.
Yeah. So it's about,
so you get to 2030, 2031, and you kind of kept hitting there. Now we don't have that strong of a reserve in the bank balance, and you get some.
Yeah. If
people out of the state house that don't understand what they're really doing.
There is a fear or a caution flag that I have out right now. It's lit.
Mm-hmm.
It is. We are literally working with what we know right now between 2000 now and 2028. We kind of know the game, but we don't know 2029. And we're
well, and that's what scares me is really we need it as a group, because it's a pretty good group. We can figure this out. I'm worried about who gets elected in 2029, 2020, 2030, and they come in here and they have no idea, what's gotten us here. And then, who knows what our leadership's going to be. And things change. And then, and I know these are just projections, but it's a trend I'd like to see us try to see if we can reverse down the road. And again, the lit thing, I don't like the fact that that's in you're going to have that established in 2028. So politically, this you're not your own, but politically, when do you bring that in front of your council?
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I'm saying about this Musk group. I personally, if I were a member on there, I'd be reluctant to be throwing myself out there right now. What kind of lit rate you're going to put out there?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so early. There's so many conversations that have to be had yet before you get to that. I mean, I think that's the goal of that committee, but how do they start talking about when they don't even know what
but let's say I go in and establish a lit in 2028. What's preventing a new council coming in 2033 saying, you know what, we're just cutting that lit altogether. And now we are subject, this board, and subject to that ups and downs and the whims of whoever runs on you elect me, I'll get rid of this local income tax that, the Fortville Town Council put in 2028. And, they're all gone and nobody's sitting there going, the reason for it is so it pays for your police officers and your fire department. And then you get a bunch of 3 yahoos in there and go, well, we're cutting this. And before you know it, our budgets are impacted and public safety's getting impacted.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, that really kind of happened last year at the state level. I mean, they were determined to cut, and they did without telling the world what does this cut mean. I mean, it's fine. Actually, if you want to run on that, I'm always fine with that. But just tell us what services don't you want? What school services don't want?
Exactly.
What towns?
Well, and how about them coming out and they don't explain how the wheel tax is going to work, right? So our understanding was the county was going to have their wheel tax, and we as municipalities, so we wanted in that CCMG and other grants, we had to have our own municipality wheel tax, right? So we implemented a really low wheel tax because we were like, oh, that's going to be us plus the counties. Well, they come in, no, the county is only keeping their portion for the, and you guys got to have your own. So again, they don't explain how they're doing these things or why. And just to me, this local income tax is going to be a PR nightmare because it's counterintuitive to what they did. So we're gonna lower your property taxes by $300, but now we're gonna raise your income taxes to offset that money. Just leave it alone.
So this is maybe a visual. So if you own a lot of property and have low income, you love this idea.
Yes.
But if you don't own any property and you're raising income tax, you hate this idea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so and you've heard me all say this, the only fair tax the one someone else pays, and that's just moving the pieces around. You got it. Government costs X number of dollars. Somebody's got to pay it, and right now we just keep moving the sheller.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, I mean, where do we get to a point as a fire department where we're looking at a third station? You can build a building, but if you don't have people to operate it, it's a useless building.
yeah, and no, that's another.
So
if there's something in jeopardy for you,
Mhm.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's
You're talking about the intranet, and I'll cover that in our budget.
and that's probably our hole that we have now, where we would have otherwise under the old model probably been on a path to get that done. But right now, that's not the case. And so that's probably the biggest thing. Now, the only other way you get to a third station is if you have enough men you can move around. I don't think you do.
Nope.
Yeah. And so that's you either move people and to open it or you
or you just keep running deficits and eventually get to a point where you don't have, you're running basically on, you don't have any money in your cash bank account. You're just going month to month in a sense,
Now, one thing, this isn't much, but yeah, we've got a $300,000 deficit. We wouldn't have to have any equipment in here if we didn't want. We could, that 50,000, we could pay out of a cumulative fund or a debt, and we could pay out of a debt.
But
that's not much though, but
no,
that's a small
at the end of the day, you're finding a lot of hard places to cut.
Yeah. This is what you call a structural deficit, meaning your future, we're off 300,000, but we're always off 300,000 going forward. So that is a structural problem. It's not a balanced
All
budget.
assuming non-growth. Are you showing only 4% growth in terms of population in this area, or no?
No, so this population right now in this model doesn't affect it. It's all the assessed valuation that affects it.
So if we don't raise the via lit, right? If we don't have institute lit tax, the only other way we do is we grow by property.
Yeah, but right now the growth appeal's going. So even if we grow.
Well, I mean, but the more houses I've got, the more assessed value you got, and the more unabated commercial that benefits us.
Yeah, no doubt. The higher the tax base, the better.
All right.
So one last thing is the cumulative fund. And that
Dominate, but
no, that's an important conversation because that's what this is saying. So, page 6. I won't spend a lot of time on this. So this is a positive one, in that right now, all I have in here is our existing payments. Stacy and Mark are working on getting some amortizations on some potential new equipment that will be in the future, but not right now. But the point being is this is surplusing revenue right now above our expenses based on what we have debt on right now. And we have debt paying off.
Which debt do we have?
So the 2021 engines pay off in July of 2027. So they will be rolling out in 2027. And then, so really Michael's 2028 and 2029 right now has some level of replacement built into it automatically because, we're paying those engines off in July, and then that would assume that we're picking up some piece of apparatus, which will show in the capital plan, replacing that. The 2023 ambulance pays off in 2031, but has an early payoff somewhere in like 27 or 28, I think is the earliest we could pay that ambulance off.
Oh, okay. Early. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there's some, if we get some of this debt off of our
So
books. And
here's another big place you've got revenue, page 40. this is the amortization schedule on the station. So this is where we would otherwise gone for station three. Station three is not looking hopeful out there right now. And so this money would be available for equipment if you so choose, in that that's only 29. So by 29, this station pays off.
Mhm.
So that's quite a bit of money that
That or do you pay off the other station early?
I don't know the answer to that because it all depends on the refinancing of it.
Right.
They've also laddered, if you recall, when they ran that, they also laddered this down.
Yep.
So that's a possibility. Usually bonds are 10-year calls. In other words, you gotta wait 10 years before you call them for it to make sense. But this number is not too far away out there, but that could be all part of the conversation. Do you refinance to pay the other one off early, or do you have equipment needs that the cumulative fund isn't going to cover?
Well, I mean, if you free up 230,000 of cash, you've been budgeting 313, put that in there, you refinance that at a lower rate. Get that debt off so that you can then finance another station.
So
if
keep in
needed
mind,
by
Greg,
2020,
annually,
2035.
yeah, it's a bigger number than that because you're going to take two payments because that's an annual amount. There's two payments. So, 460 is coming off. That's a big payment. That would generate a lot of money on a debt. So anyway, so there's some bright. So let's put it this way: operating side, big caution flag, not red flag. We're not out of cash,
No,
but caution flag, capital money. We can probably get you the capital money you need.
well, and if you don't ever do a third station, you're freeing up as these two stations debts come off. You do have more money flowing into operations if you do had to, whether it's pay raises, whether it's more staff or what we're at. So I mean, you're freeing up,
Yeah.
or you're just carrying some of that over and building that cash balance.
Unfortunately, the growth of this community, you're going to need a third station.
Well, I know.
At some point, you're going to get to the
The
point.
problem will be, and you've already said it, we can build it, yeah, but
Yeah.
with the amount of people in it.
That's been the story for schools for years too. They always get confused by the capital money and the operating money. The operating money is controlled by the state.
Yeah.
They might be able to go out and build it, but you can't afford to operate it.
Yep.
And so a couple last things, and then I'll get out of here so you can go on with your meeting. But page 10. The assessed valuation. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. It actually came out pretty darn close last year to what I was estimating by fluke. That was not scientific. It came out pretty close. We only grew 13% last year. And if you recall, that last year, meaning 26, that's the beginning of the supplemental homestead deductions coming on. It went from 37.5% to 40%. But the steps get bigger now going out from here on out. So I've cut that pretty drastically. I cut it a little more in 27 to only 5% growth because that's also the year inventory tax changes. If you recall, that didn't get done in 26, that gets done in 27. And then thereafter, it is the supplemental homestead deduction going up and up until 2031 until 2/3 of the home value will be written off before it gets assessed. There'll be whatever the house value is, 1/3 of it will get. So tax rates, back one page, Noah, page 9. We had a little increase this year. That was expected. We talked about that. Not a huge increase. And you can see prior years, we were doing really good with tax rate. I'm anticipating the rate's going to go down this year. And we say, well, how is that? Why? How? Well, they're cutting our maximum levy.
Mhm.
So when you look at our fire rate, this is not what we want to happen. We don't want it to go from 0.4083 to 0.3924. But that's what's going to happen is that rate will go down because we don't have an appeal and they're cutting our maximum levy. So that's working against us. Now, going out, I'm seeing not big shifts one way or the other. But so, with all that said, the budget I think that Mark is presenting is a good budget. I think that you just need to, wherever you can in 27, try and hold back to make up that deficit. And maybe we'll get a bigger budget number on the lit number than what I've got in here. But if we get more revenue, that's going to be good. But it's only going to go to balancing his budget. It's not going to be new money. You know what I'm saying? So if the lit estimate comes in higher in 27 than what I have in this model, it's just going to go to offset that.
Yeah.
So it helps that conversation of the trajectory of the budget. So that is all I have for you this morning.
As usual, always educational.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always amazed how almost spot on you are in terms of your projections.
Oh, well, thank you.
I mean, it helps. It helps from a planning standpoint and budgeting. I mean, I know we use mine at town of Fordsville, and it really makes a difference when we're getting a budgeting because we can really rely on those numbers. There's not a huge, oh, well, I projected to this and it came in 12%. Well, that has an impact when you're talking millions of dollars. So,
One last announcement. I think I hope we all know, maybe you don't. I've merged with Policy Analytics. Policy Analytics is another company. They are very big in the property tax world, especially with Senate Bill 1. They've been around for about 20 years. I've merged my business with them. Your world doesn't change. I'm still your consultant. Your fees aren't going to double. You're going to go up the same as, well, actually, I don't even charge the fire territory. It's the township pays. The township pays my consulting fees. I just do the fire.
thanks, Larry.
Yeah.
Mary Beth, appreciate it.
Yeah. So just so you know that your world won't change. The only difference will be when the contracts come up for renewal or agreements come up for renewal, they'll be with Policy Analytics, not Michael A. Reuter. They're going to provide me backroom support. And so I've been on my own for over 30 years doing this. It's nice to have others to talk to, especially with all this. A lot of people have used Policy Analytics over the years. They're a very well-respected organization. And so I'm excited and nervous at the same time. I can only tell you though, right now, I've just gotten busier, so we're trying to get this converted. So, but anyway, just wanted to make sure everybody.
Michael, quick question. And I appreciate what you said about our budget. You are comfortable for 1 year for us dipping into reserves for the 240.
But obviously it's the caution flag.
Yeah.
If you can avoid that, that's what I would encourage you to do, wherever you can. But for 1 year to kind of see things play out one more year, but there'll be a day of reckoning in 27, or excuse me, in 28.
Yeah.
If we don't see something turn or we get better clarification, we may be starting to put the brakes on tightening things up more. But right now, fortunately for you, you're in a strong cash position. So where some are not.
If I see correctly, the revenues for 28 projected to go up 300,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Well. Right.
Okay. Well,
Thanks, sir.
let me get out of here and go put a hot pad on my back.
Go do red light therapy.
Yeah, I get my wife's mad. I know she tells me to do it, but I'm usually too tired to do it when I go to bed. So
Okay, so moving on, fire chief monthly report.
Monthly report is in your packet. Just hit the highlights of it. Our run numbers obviously continue to increase every month.
thanks for driving.
For the month of March, we were up 8.8% compared to the same month last year. And overall for the year, we are up 8.3% compared to this time last year, from January to March. So 15 more incidents. Yeah.
How's your data been showing for the 400 and 500 crossings in terms of accidents? Has there been any change? Or are you seeing an increase, decrease, about the same?
I have to run the data because we don't do it by intersection. I do know that we have had more crashes recently at 400 and 500.
Do we have any truck issues hitting with trains, have we?
Not with us.
Okay.
We have
At
not.
the
I've not
400
been-
crossing?
Yeah.
I will say, every time I head west on 67,
Mhm.
people are just zooming across the highway. I slow down now. I don't even drive the speed limit through those
You're on
two.
record. Oh, you don't, you're slowing down.
I slow down
Yeah.
because I'm afraid
Yeah.
I'm getting up.
You're gonna get run over.
T-bone you.
Doesn't mean you're getting old, just hits.
The Quinn update, it is downtown Indianapolis. I have passes for you guys if you want to get down
I
there.
can't, if you got somebody who wants to
No,
go, I
because
can't.
this year they're actually cracking down and don't give your pass to somebody
Oh.
else because they're supposedly going to be checking ID, and if you get caught,
Oh, well,
They're
yeah,
gonna
I was like,
yeah.
I looked through the date, oh, I can't get to either. Yes.
you'll have to get them a pass down and pay for it, and they're not cheap. So,
Okay.
unfortunately, now if it's kids, it's a reduced cost for kids. Sometimes they even let kids in free, not always, but but it is downtown Indianapolis right now, and it will be delivered next door on Saturday. Chief Hathaway will be over here to receive it because I will be out of town starting tonight. MS revenue.
So we're gonna have that, what do you think, about a month and a half of training on that before it's in service?
It'll be all dependent on how quick our people pick it up, the driving. The operating of it, I'm not worried about. It's the driving.
How to drive it, where were you? Where were you?
We're going to
driving?
start out very slowly. And fortunately, Thursday's Pools has offered to let us use their lot for driving.
Okay.
So Bill's a great guy. And he said, sure, come on down. So we're going to start there.
Wide open and no,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And he's given the manufacturer, they have given us some recommendations on how to start out with training using some pylons and getting some like PVC pipe to simulate, utility poles and things like that. So we're going to take our time. It may be a little bit longer than 2 months. It's just going to depend on how quickly our people pick it.
How much longer than the standard engine?
About 10 foot longer.
10 feet, okay.
And what's the length?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
47?
Yeah, it's
Because I only think because we
Yeah.
were trying to figure out how long we need to
Yeah.
build that building.
So will you do a pushback ceremony once it goes in service? Okay.
yeah, we'll do something informal for it, but
And just as an update, I'll be making the wire transfer to pay for the Quint, and we got a change order that was dated from 11/22/2024. That actually takes the price down from 1,708,908 to 1,706,316.03. So we saved
Speaking my own language.
the fire department graciously, whatever changes they made, saved $2,591.97.
We'll spend that all in one place, boys.
And then I did make a transfer from the Trust Indiana Fund to fund
Yeah.
the Quint. I don't have the numbers because it takes a while for those transactions to process. So I didn't really provide quarterly numbers on the Trust Indiana, but I will send you an update once. But there was about $2.9 million in that account.
Mhm.
So it does take it down, but still.
So still got in, we got, we're earning interest on it, we're adding to it. I mean, it really, again, I look at that and I see that we got those numbers. I think we'll be okay, but I start seeing trends and I start,
no,
Yeah, I more than cringed. I can tell you when I had to hit the button to transfer the money, I was like, ugh.
at least you transfer it to our account, not to your account.
It's not to count. There was several comments yesterday made, when you hit that wire transfer.
Where is Stacy Nielsen? I write this, well, she's in Turks and Caicos.
Never coming back.
second page is the EMS bill. I separated this out. We're going to do this on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
If you don't object. Down at the bottom is the year to date. Now you'll notice the revenue's down about $7,000. I'm not overly concerned about that. It's just how the cycle on the billing runs, but mileage is up. So I know our EMS call volume is up. So that number is we'll catch back up. But
That's increasing, looks like.
Yeah.
Man, it's almost doubling each from last year, isn't it?
Mhm.
What do you think that means is?
Line.
All right.
Well, it is what it is.
And then Stacy has our financial report in there as well.
So this is 331. Obviously, you can skip the top part section as that's all the townships related information. Down at the very bottom, you can see personnel services. We're running at about 21%, with 25% elapsed. Supplies right on 24%. I can tell you that's largely driven by EMS supplies. The cost of everything is still going up, and with the increased run numbers, we're having to purchase more supplies. And putting a second medic in service full time will probably level itself out as the year goes on, but that was an initial
Right.
big
So
stocking.
when we bill EMS, it's not just the run, it's also, are we billing their insurance company for all supplies and everything too, for the,
Well, there's a flat rate or call
Right.
based on what the call type, ALS 1, ALS 2. So yes, it goes to their insurance.
But I think, I just want to make sure that it's never viewed that it is a revenue stream, right? It's an offsetting revenue
Yeah,
source,
right.
if that makes sense, right? Because by the time you talk about, two people per day in each of those medic trucks, and then you talk about all the supplies, and then unfortunately, you've got medications that outdate before you use them, and you've got the blood.
I'm looking at the point is if we're able to bill, insurance, the cost of like a sailing bag or, those kind of things, if that's something we're able to do, because we shouldn't have to eat the supply cost on that. That shouldn't just be I just don't know how it works.
Yeah, and so it's an overall cost of the run. It's categories by the call type.
Well, and I think you have to remember too, unfortunately, in the billing world, right, you can bill whatever you want, but there is only so much that is allowable. And when you have Medicare and Medicaid patients, now you're capped even lower than what private insurance is gonna pay. So,
I don't say you're making money, but if you can break even or take a less of a loss.
That's
Yeah.
something we may want to keep an eye on
Right.
is fuel costs. And if we may want to look, if it continues at this cost range, we may want to come back in and adjust our EMS billing fee on the mileage. If we continue in the next couple of months and the fuel cost doesn't come down, we may want to address that.
That's fine.
So
I'm open to that.
Services and charges, we're running just under budget at 22%. Obviously, that we got some capital outlays, a lot of which, have potential opportunity in terms of looking at the build out of that training center. We're not going to spend $1.1 million. Clearly, Michael showed in the budget, we've got a $500,000, that we're going to return back, appropriation that will return back this year. We are in conversations with GM Development over that project. We hit some real snags in terms of, don't think we were talking the same language, in terms of the amount of money that this project was going to have committed to it. So we've sent them back now to the drawing board a couple of times to say, you need to sharpen your pencil. We're not going to spend $2 million on a storage building and training facility. So please sharpen your pencil and figure this out. And they've come back at a better place. They're still not quite where I think they need to be. And I think there's a lot more work that can be done. So I'm challenging them consistently. And if they're not the right partner for us, because we can't get to where we need to be, we will figure out how to go forward with somebody else.
Good. Yeah.
So the backside just shows that we've got the encumbrances, which is, $1.8 million, as Michael alluded to. Obviously, $1.7 million of that is the quint, plus there's a little bit of other miscellaneous stuff that we encumbered. One is like that we've got some door access work that's been done over the past few days, and we've switched over door access at both stations. The advantage to that is we had some initial upfront equipment costs that we put in, but we're now managing everything internally where we were paying an outside vendor to manage the stations. So with Noah's capability that he's brought to our team, it gives us the advantage that we don't have to pay for outside services to manage a lot of the things that we're managing, but we needed to do some equipment upgrades in order to be able to make that happen. So And right now we've only dispersed the first payment for the ambulance for this year, so that's why there's money remaining there. Any questions from anybody on?
Appreciate it.
Last thing I got under my monthly report, and it's not listed on the agenda, but I'd like a recommendation, favorable recommendation from the territory board to surplus the 2014 Explorer and the 2000 Excursion vehicles. Make a positive recommendation to the township board to surplus those, and we'll send them to the auction. With the vehicles that we purchased late last year, we don't need them. Or, we can get them off our maintenance and insurance and everything.
Right. So I need motion from the floor.
I need motion.
Second,
First and second to surplus the two vehicles Chief mentioned. Roll call, please. Tony Davis.
Aye.
Lori May.
A.
Greg Brewer, yay. Passes 3-0. The recommendation. Yep. All right, 2027 budget review.
All right, it's in your, I emailed it out last week.
Mhm.
It's in your packet, and then there's a cover letter attached. The highlights of it, personnel services will be a 9.2% increase, supplies 14.5%, contractual services 1% increase, and a decrease in our capital under the operations of 22%. Our objectives to keep the insurance as is, adding $2,000 to the pension base for everybody. So everybody will get a $2,000 increase. As far as what kind of percentage raise that is, that'll just vary depending on what their current salary is. What will keeps us increasing our pension base, trying to be competitive. That will increase our pension base to 82,000. We are adding, if approved, we will add one part-time position each day. That will allow us to allow one additional person off on paid time off per day. Right now, we're only allowing one person off per day, and we're facing some challenges with the amount of paid time off, allowing everybody to use their available paid time off. If approved, bringing on a part-time person, we would be able to accommodate that. And then increasing the supply and contractual budget just to manage the anticipated cost increases that we've seen so far. As I mentioned before under Michael's presentation, this budget is $204,266 over the budget goal. I am asking for your support and approval to dip into our reserve fund for 1 year to offset this. But however, during the budget year, we will manage costs as much as possible to reduce that balance as we can.
Okay, any questions for the chief? Anybody want to make a motion to recommend approval of the budget? Because we can't approve the budget, correct?
They have to be sent to the towns.
Right, so the recommendation is to send this proposed budget to the territory and to the towns for approval. Okay. That'll be the motion.
No, it goes to the towns first.
And then the township.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're just making a recommendation to
Right,
proceed.
to move it forward in the budget process.
A positive endorsement.
I'll make the recommendation.
It's been a first, Lori.
a second,
Been a first and second to recommend the chief to propose this budget to the township board and the two town councils. Those in favor signify by saying aye via roll call. Tanya Davis,
Aye.
Lori May,
aye.
Greg Brewer, yay. Passes 3-0 the recommendation.
Should I reach out to your town managers?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for us, June would be a good June or July. We should be able to get you on in June. That's
Something in the interlocal, I don't go off the top of my head about deadlines. Do we have to do it before July? Does it have
Well,
to
I
be
think,
June?
I think the point is to do it in June is often because if for some reason the towns would have some sort of
Right.
pushback, it would give us the opportunity to bring
I
it
mean-
back and then bring it back forward again because it has to be incorporated into, the township has to vote on it by
You can do it
September.
anytime.
You could do it in May too, if you really want, if you reach out to Tim right, this week or next, we could get it, you get on that probably in May as well, if you wanted to.
Same thing.
Shouldn't be a problem.
Joe?
Okay.
Sure, Andy, either one.
All right, capital plan update. There-
They have the capital plan, states, you may do it or you want to do it. Well, it's been updated from what you've had in the past, with the addition and reduction of removal of certain pieces of apparatus. We are requesting to purchase a pumper tanker, and that would remove the current tanker that we have. Once it comes in, it's a 2-year build time, 30 to 36 months, I believe, for it. So, and then another ambulance, which it's a 24-month build time, and that would take our current Medic 431, which was the first one we ever bought. It would move it to reserve status, and then we would take the Sugar Creek ambulance that we bought to replace the one that we inherited, and then it would be surplus. So, the funding, go ahead, if you want to talk about the funding.
So as Michael talked about, we do have we'll have some capacity in the special equipment replacement fund, upcoming once the engines pay off. I'm working with Republic right now. We've worked with them in the past on lease, purchase agreements. So I'm working on getting some finite numbers. A $1.45 million purchase is, at the current interest rate, is hard to project. So I really need for them to kind of give me what that might look like. And then the cost of the ambulance has gone up pretty significantly. We're talking about $540,000 to purchase a new ambulance. One recommendation was made from Kylie, and I think we will follow through on this one as well, is, we've obviously we've put a tremendous amount of money into purchasing these pieces of equipment. With the ambulance, you can re-chassis an ambulance one time.
Okay.
So the thought would be not the current Sugar Creek ambulance, but purchase, once we get this new ambulance purchase, we would re-chassis the 2019 ambulance that we have. Because the box itself is, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's literally where, the amount of road miles and wear and tear that these ambulances go through, do cause issues. So we can but we would have to have, we'd have to have an ambulance to be able to, to be able to do that, because it does take some time. I don't know what the process is. I don't know if it's 6 months or whatever. I'm not exactly sure how long that would take, but that would be our thoughts, would be to, re-chassis that 2019. It would give it extend the life of it without putting as much cost into it. So we're working on some of those kinds of things, trying to be diligent about how we use this capital money. So
Where are you standing on the grass rig?
What I'm hoping is surplusing the excursion because of the diesel engine and things like that. And I think we might be able to get some money in what we have available. We might be able to buy a truck outright, because the grass rig has a skid in, or a skid, and then we can pull it out and just probably take it to like Hoosier Fire and do some.
Did you look? I mean, that thing's 1997. I noticed we've had more of those grass fires lately than.
But as we continue to develop, there's going to be few.
That's true. But we definitely need a new tanker. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
And with the pumper tanker concept, again, it's going to be multi-purpose.
Right.
It'll be able to serve as an engine, backup
There you
engine,
Not just pure
not just
water
pure
source
tanker.
that
Yeah.
everybody else carries
Right.
around here. Okay, well, again, we get two things out for the price of one. I'm always a big favor of that.
well, and I think, as we start to look forward and where we're going, and I know we're all cognizant that, we're purchasing this land for the third station. The hope would be that when the debt rolled off from 2029 for this station, that we would be able to roll right into constructing a third station. But the reality is we can construct a third station. We just can't. We can't
Just have
staff
to
it.
operate. No, but here's the more important thing. It's having the land.
Yeah.
All right. Because the land is getting, she sees it, I see it. Having the land and just know that's security. We can worry about the financing, the build, and the operations down the road. The problem is once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
You know?
Agreed.
We were looking, I was gonna cover this before I closed out my comments, but just looking at the current funding stream, if it stays as is, it'll be 2029 before we can even hire 3 career people. If things stay as is. So this part-time program, we're gonna have to utilize it again. And hopefully we will be able to hire quality, and we will hire quality, qualified individuals to fill these roles. But
Also, open that part-time, if we have attrition, those guys, we can't feed.
until we can get them rehired, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Would they go on would those part-time people also be on your hiring list for the merit board?
We would have to change our merit policy, and if something doesn't, we'd have to work together on is, I think there's a way to probably build it into where they could get points if they're current part-time employee. I don't know. That'd be something to look at.
Well, I just think to have that policy in place so that, the merit board would approve the fact that that person was on the higher list who was a part-timer to be full-time, that really could be something that would, slow or speed up the process. I say. But if you, present that, let us know and do a merit board, we can get that done. Because I think you're right, you're gonna have to rely on that for a while.
The fire marshal's position, I have not advertised that yet, just because I didn't know what was going to happen with the budget. So wanted to make sure. So I will get that advertised.
Okay. All right. Anything else on the capital plan update? So do you need, are you gonna come back in May, or when are you gonna have projection numbers on the tanker and the ambulance?
I would hope it at the next meeting. Unfortunately, it's just a bad timing, right? Because FDIC is going on, so everybody's downtown. She told me early next week she would know.
Okay.
So
maybe, if we have a May meeting, or if not, June.
I would think that
Okay. All right, leadership contingency and succession planning.
so I'm covering this on Lori's behalf today. She just wanted to kind of make sure that this was, I know it's been discussed in the township board meeting about she is going on an extended trip. She'll be gone for, I think, 5 or 6 weeks. And so from a contingency and planning, Jeff Augustinovich is the designee. So in her absence, he will act in her capacity. He will come in here on a weekly basis, and he will sign checks, and he will approve township assistance. Obviously, with the coordination between Jenny and myself, we'll ensure that he understands. He will help approve payroll and all the things that Lori acts in her capacity to do. And then Mary Beth is an additional signer on the account as well. So we've added her at Greenfield Bank and Jeff. And there will be dual signatures on every check while Lori is gone. This is kind of, we'd like to think it's just this temporary situation while Lori's gone, but we always need to be thinking about what would happen if, we had someone who was in an official capacity, that was not able to fulfill their role. So secondarily, I believe that Lori has sent information out to the territory board as well, that we've been kind of working through this exercise internally at the fire department level. And so, if for some reason Chief Elder was not able to fulfill his role in his capacity, even temporarily, the thought at this point is that we would move to an interim co-chiefs with Kylie Culberson and Scott Hathaway acting in that capacity until as such time we could figure out what the next steps might look like, So that's just kind of, we had this continuity of operations exercise that started about a year ago. And we started thinking about contingency planning, I mean, we have a lot of great people in our organization who serve a very specific role. The fire marshal is another example of, in the interim, while we do not have someone in that seat, Noah and Chief Elder are acting in his capacity, filling in where we can and doing what needs to be done. We all know that, there are things that can happen that we can't foresee. So how do we start to work on that? And we're working on it, also from a perspective in the entire organization, ensuring that we have people that we're starting to train to become those next people in our organization.
My understanding though, don't take this personally, Flory, but if something happened to her, there would be where whatever there would be a caucus.
There would be, yes.
Yeah, but in the interim.
Right, you only have like 10, but you'd have was it 14 days from
It's
the
30.
county party chairman calls for
30.
is a 30 day.
30.
So you have a 30-day before that person would be replaced. So you have so it's not,
So
we're not allowed to talk in long term.
No.
It's what happens on a short term, right? So okay.
And just so everyone understands, township trustees are legally required to have a designee. So this isn't something we've just arbitrarily come up with. The naming of the designee has to be done each year. Stacy was previously my designee, but when she got elected to the school board, she was no longer able to serve in that role. And that is what
It can't be a dual office thing,
Right, yeah.
because it would be considered a lucrative position.
And so that's
just
that's why we made the change. And yes, it would be short term to fill that obligation.
Right.
And we're just making certain I fully plan to come back. I'm just we just want to obviously show precaution.
Sure. All right. Anything else on that? Okay, our next meeting will be May 18th, 2026, if needed, designated by chief. That'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
First, is there a second?
And there's a second.
Roll call. Donnie Davis,
Okay.
Flory May,
A.
Greg Brewer, yes. Carries. Meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.